This week, Black Adam is finally in theaters. We are going to dig deep into a spoiler-filled review. We've also got some news items related to that to talk about. All that and more coming up next on Flicker Effect, episode 421. Hey.
Hey, good to see you guys.
Hello. Good to see you.
I guess it seems to be that there must be something I don't know about, because why can't we seem to have both black guys on the show at the same time? I don't know if there's some sort of
it has happened.
I don't know. It's sure it's been a while. Yep, I'm in. Yasha's out. So that's
it seemed like last week the gods were indeed
Michelle.
trying to prevent that from happening. Like, since you were going to be on the show, and
it was not working.
I know
last minute problems.
I popped in for like a half a second, but there was audio issues, so I had to jump back out and couldn't get back in there. So unfortunately, but
that was the true definition
Michelle?
of a hot second.
It really was. I was like, I heard you guys were like, "Oh, it's buzzing." I was like, "Okay, let me try and fix it," and I couldn't figure it out. So I was like, "Okay, well, there goes that."
Oh, the world of podcasting.
Yeah, we're good now. So this week there's quite a bit to discuss. We have our review, as David said, for Black Adam, but before that, I want to go back to something that the Rock has been saying for quite a while. Actually, he has said that when Black Adam enters the DCEU, the hierarchy of DC will change. And though he was referring to his movie, in actuality, the DC hierarchy did change. We got news this week, just a couple days ago, that one of our favorite people from Marvel is going to be co-running DC unit of Warner Brothers. That is James Gunn, along with Peter Safran, will be co-chairing and co-CEOing DC, their animation, film, and TV. So this is actually quite big news, especially considering how much James Gunn had been so much Marvel. And just for a little bit of backstory on that, obviously anyone who knows James Gunn knows that he's done all of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. There was a period in time between Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 where some old tweets of his got out, and Disney didn't quite like that. So Mr. Alan Horn said, James, you got to go. And so they pretty much let him go. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was in flux at that point, and James Gunn was probably pretty worried about his career because he, at that point, was like basically getting canceled. So the fact that he's such a great filmmaker in this industry, people are going to snap you up regardless of some controversy, unless it's really, really bad. And in this case, it was Warner Brothers, and they said, "Hey, James, come on over. We'll let you do whatever you wanted to do." One of the things that they kind of wanted him to do was Superman, but he said he didn't feel like he had a great take. So he went to the Suicide Squad. So that came out, and we didn't do as well as they hoped, but what did come out of that product was Peacemaker, and that did really great and had a lot of acclaim. So during this interim, as things kind of started to smooth over, he did end up going back to Marvel to at least do Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And even when he came back, he was pretty much saying, yeah, this will probably be my last sort of go around with Guardians of the Galaxy. Not really necessarily saying anything about Marvel itself, but pretty much you figure if that's the only thing he had been doing at Marvel, he probably wasn't going to be doing anything else there. Although at one point in time, Kevin Feige had sort of initiated the idea that James Gunn would be kind of his go-to right-hand person in doing all of the galactic level stuff for Marvel. But again, all the stuff happened, and then that kind of all went out the window. So now DC has decided to really double down on their James Gunn partnership and have him co-running the DC unit. So, I mean, to me, it is just fantastic news. I think that James Gunn is so talented, and I really enjoy everything that he's done so far in the comic book universe. Plus, he's a person that uh, is into the material. He's not just sort of someone from the outside kind of saying, "Oh, okay, I can see what we can do." No, he knows a lot of the characters. He knows deep cut characters. So to me, it's him being in charge of the creative side while having Peter Safran or on the business side just makes a lot of sense. So I've said my piece. Michelle, what did you think of the news when you heard it?
I mean, I was super excited. I think I was probably the first one that shared it with you guys the other day. I was like, what? I was like, oh my gosh. It was literally like hot off the presses. And I think it's great news because unfortunately, when those tweets came out that James Gunn had from literally around the birth of Twitter, and we all regret tweets from that era, let's be real. Um, were they great? Not really. Was he young and naive? And were we all still figuring out how the internet, basically lives forever and repercussions that it would have? Yeah. And I think he's apologized for those mistakes and he regrets them deeply. And he's stated so multiple times. And I think Disney might have gotten a little too heavy handed too fast. And that probably left a pretty bad taste in his mouth. And then, yeah, he did the Suicide Squad project. And it actually, I mean, if the two Suicide Squad films go, it was definitely the better one for sure. And then, yeah, like Peacemaker came out of that, which was a great thing. We all love Peacemaker. I don't know. I think this is just nothing but good news for him and his career. And I think it's also just really good news for DC. I think it's a visionary guy that gets the big picture, or at least gets the smaller pictures that lead up to the big picture. And I think he gets it. And he gets it not just from a fan standpoint, but I think he gets it from a pathway into seeing the future moving forward. I think it's all good news for everybody, literally, all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with either of you guys. Like, yeah, I think I had my text with Bobby yesterday when I finally got a chance to see the news because I was working and I hadn't seen the news for a little bit. Once it dropped, I was just like, I think you could tell from my reaction. I was like pretty pumped. Yeah, it's good to see somebody in the role that's, like you said, Bobby, isn't just kind of like a Hollywood executive type, you know. Yeah, you want Peter as a producer, and
Yeah.
James Gunn is going to be more of the creative of the two. And I think it's fantastic news. I mean, again, I don't know what else to add that you guys haven't already said, but as someone who is a big fan of DC and wants to see DC do good things, like I think this is a very good move. I think it could be easy for some people to go, oh, he only does kind of really non-serious stuff, like when it comes to the comic book movies he's made. But I think it's pretty clear, even if that's kind of the stuff as a filmmaker he has kind of leaned into, that it doesn't mean that he's not going to have an eye for a broader look
Right.
at all things DC. It'll be interesting too to see how kind of things moving forward, because DC's in a funky spot, right? Like they're not, it's not just like Marvel where it's like, okay, there's a single DC universe and they're taking over. There's like 3 different DC universes right now. Like there's the Joker films. Well, there's one, but another one is about to be made, that is, it appears, is not going to fall under the James Gunn and Peter Safran regime. It's going. It seems like that those filmmakers are going to report to someone else and not to these two, so it won't really, I guess, fall under DC Studios.
Right.
It'll
It's
be
my
under Warner Brothers.
Right, and it's my understanding that when it comes to the Matt Reeves stuff, it's kind of not really explained yet, like where that's going to fall and if he's going to report to them or not. But at least anything else new that comes along in DC though will fall under their regime, and I think it's pretty exciting.
Yeah,
I am pumped.
yeah. It's super exciting. And just even to follow up a little bit on what you were saying, that like you said, David, the Joker, that is still going to be doing its own thing.
Hmm.
But the interesting thing is they will start their job on November 1st. I am so curious to see that if on their first day, if they make any announcements, like, just have like hey, we're starting today and we'd like to start off with a bang. Man of Steel coming, Man of Steel 2 coming in
Right.
2026 or 2025 or something like that. Something to just sort of get people excited right off the bat. So we'll know, I guess, at least something sooner rather than later. But to kind of stay on the Henry Cavill topic of Superman, he actually was just on a podcast, the Josh Horowitz podcast. I think it's Happy, Sad, and Confused. And he talked a little bit about playing Superman again. And there's nothing specific in that in terms of what he was allowed to say, because apparently he knows something, because he even sort of says that he can't discuss certain things, but he can't wait to be able to talk about it. But what he kind of did say in a quote from Hollywood Reporter, he said that this is such a bright future ahead for the character, and I'm so excited to tell a story with an enormously joyful Superman. So it sounds like they will definitely be going the route of having Superman not dour and sort of upset, and he will be more of a traditional Superman character that most people are used to. So
I
for me,
think,
that's good. I like hearing that.
yeah, no, it is good. I think even for Superman, I think where we've basically left off with Superman is that he's come to terms with a lot of things and he's come to peace with a lot of things, and
All right.
I think he's, yeah, I mean, I think he had to go through some serious mental trials and tribulations and emotional dealings with things, and he was pretty deep and dark and sad. Now I don't think he's worked through those things. He's definitely on a better end of things where we've last
Hmm.
left him off.
Right.
So yeah, it'll be nice to see a much lighter Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, one other thing that was announced today from DC is that there was something I had actually was thinking about and was going to bring up on the show. I think one of the weeks within the last couple of weeks, but I wasn't able to be on. And I was curious as to what had happened to the Green Lantern movie or the series that they had mentioned so far back. I think before HBO Max even really started. It was like one of those things that they had announced that would be on the service. And the series was supposed to have Alan Scott's Green Lantern, who's the first Green Lantern, and also Guy Gardner, one of the kind of, for lack of a better term, sort of a harder edge kind of Green Lantern with a bit of a chip on his shoulder. So today we got an announcement that that show is still happening, but it's being completely overhauled. And instead of those two characters, Guy Gardner and Alan Scott, it's going to focus on John Stewart. And
Mm.
so a lot of people are pretty happy about that news, just because there's a decent amount of people who John Stewart is their Green Lantern, sort of like how certain people have the Doctor as their doctor because they came into
Mm-hmm.
it at a certain point. That's kind of how it is with Green Lantern, because Green Lantern, for the longest time, my Green Lantern would be Hal Jordan, because that's the character I was introduced to when I started reading comics and watching animation and everything. But for some people who are younger, they came in at John Stewart when they had the Justice League cartoon and all the different series that they had, that Justice League, I think it was Unlimited, and so they know that character as their Green Lantern. So I think for a lot of people, this was really good news to hear, because they're probably not as familiar with Alan Scott or Guy Gardner. And I think in reading the article that I had saw, Greg Berlanti is still attached to it as he was before,
Uh,
but they don't know in terms of any other else who will be producing it. And then the showrunner who was doing it prior has left this new iteration, so they'll be bringing on a new person for that. But One of the things that I did see that when they talked about the original series that they were going to do, they were saying that Greg Berlanti, or they quoted Greg Berlanti, and he said that the budget was going to be about 120 million or something like that for the 8 episodes that they were going to do. The article went on to say that this new series that will be with Jon Stewart will, I think it did say significantly less. So
Hmm.
I don't know how I feel about that phrasing in terms of significantly less, because I know the other one was going to be more expensive, because for sure they said that this was going to be a space-based series, so they weren't going to be on Earth, and or very little time spent on Earth and going to other places. This one, who knows? In order to create a smaller budget, what they'll do. Um, I'm hoping that when it's less, that it's still something of quality that could at least be on par with something like Mandalorian. I would say, I don't know how much Mandalorian spends in a season, but I'm hoping at least we get that level of quality for it. But I don't know. I was surprised because I had been looking forward to that, and that's the one character I think that they still have of their big characters that they have just been having on the sidelines and not doing anything with. So hopefully this moves a little bit forward. And this was not in conjunction with the uh, James Gunn news. This was actually prior to that. So it just happened just barely prior to that. So this was not within their purview at the time, but I guess going forward, they'll probably start to be a little bit more involved in that. So I know, David, as the resident DC guy,
That's
I don't
right.
even know how much you care about Green Lantern as a character, let alone the John Stewart version.
Actually, quite a bit. I would actually say I'm not going to pretend I'm some Green Lantern expert because I think I was pretty young
Mm.
when I was doing all my Green Lantern reading, and a lot of that knowledge has now left my older brain. But probably right after Batman, it's probably what I read the most.
Mm.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Um, but yeah, I like Green Lantern a lot. So it was my understanding too, from what I had read. I don't know if it was the original report or one of the reports that, yeah, like that, like you said, that the production was going to have a pretty big budget. All the episodes were written. I think it was Seth Grahame-Smith
Hmm.
was the showrunner and had written all those episodes. But like you
Yeah.
said, it being in space and the budget was pretty big. I even thought maybe it was possibly more than what you were mentioning. That was. It sounds like that was the biggest reason for the overhaul. Like
The
it was
budget.
just we need to produce a show that's not going to cost us much. It's not like these
Mm.
scripts were bad, but that we we're not going to spend this much money on the show anymore. So we're gonna do something different, and I'm excited
Mm.
about the change. The other interesting thing though about the article, and I wish I had a screenshot to throw up about it. It almost made it because the two Green Lanterns that were gonna be originally in it, it sounds like they had been cast, and
Yeah.
the article made it sound like that they still hope to work with those two actors, which confused me since it sounded like, okay, we're going to now focus on this different Green Lantern. I didn't know how that was going to play out. I know it was weird to me, but I don't know,
Hmm.
thought it was worth
There's
mentioning.
so much potential there when you think about it, because let's say you keep those same two actors. I think the one actor, I forget what his name is, but I think he had worked on that Netflix series Ratchet. I want to say the
Okay.
Yeah,
one that was,
I'm not sure.
I think maybe, but um, it could be a situation to where they want to keep those characters because they want to also bring them into this John Stewart series at some point for maybe a cameo, and they could
Right.
even, if the show does well enough, could do a spin-off of it and have those two characters doing their own thing as like they kind of originally planned it. But
Right.
maybe that'd be the reasoning behind keeping them on board. But I do think that um, it's where they could go. I mean, they're in an interesting situation right now because I think, and I'm not so caught up, so someone would have to correct me, but I think right now in the comics, John Stewart is sort of the preeminent Green Lantern right now. I think Hal Jordan is still around, but he's not the main focus right now in the Green Lantern books. And also, either yesterday, today, or sometime this week, a new DC animated film starring Jon Stewart as the Green Lantern just came out on
Mm.
HBO Max. So yeah, it's kind of like he's
What? They
getting
made a
his
movie that
day
wasn't
in the
about
sun.
Batman? That can't be.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You look on that DC animated section and 90% of it is Batman
Yeah.
related for sure.
I
But
mean,
yeah, Michelle.
no, I was gonna say I'm gonna kind of switch it a little bit, but I'd be curious to see what kind of budget they do kind of settle on and what Berlanti does with that budget. Kind of in what he's done with the Flash and Supergirl. Like, I mean, I don't know what those budgets were. So in comparison, I could see that if he had a budget that was higher than what he's been used to, it could probably be pretty decent. Because the things that I seem to bump on when it comes to like the CW show The Flash and Supergirl really came down to more aesthetics than anything. And it wasn't so much the people or the script writing or the storylines. It was mostly an aesthetic look. So I'm like, maybe with a budget, we can up the aesthetics a little bit, you know?
I would imagine this is going to
Hope.
be, even though it's a Berlanti show, being a like HBO Max original kind of thing. I'm not saying it's going to be full on like a full on HBO series, but I would imagine it's going to have a different aesthetic than
Somewhere
like the Berlanti we're used to from the CW.
So maybe somewhere between Doom Patrol and Peacemaker. Somewhere between
Yeah.
that
Yeah, I'd say that's yeah.
range.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
probably.
we're obviously it's all conjecture. We're guessing. But.
Super guessing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I'm curious to see what Berlanti could do with a nicer budget, with a heftier budget. I'm pretty sure it could be pretty quality.
I mean, Berlanti was
Sure.
a name that was thrown around a lot as a possibility for the role that James Gunn now has, and I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
there seemed to be mixed feelings in the world as to that possibility. I think some people were pro and some people not so much, considering the CW stuff. I don't know. I kind of fell in the middle. I was like,
Yeah.
like it could be.
That's the problem I had with it. It could be like I think you're going to say is it could be good, it could be bad. I tend to think that it would have probably been good, just from the perspective that if you look at those CW shows, it especially in their first few seasons, it
Yeah.
wasn't for lack of character and story for those shows not
Right.
being good.
Right.
It's just the matter of we got to do 22 episodes of these a season and keep it going for as long as possible is where the quality starts to degrade. And obviously, a certain amount of budget only allows you for certain things, for fighting scenes and for special effects and stuff like that. So, giving him some more money to play with, I don't doubt that he would have put out some good quality product, because the characters always felt like they did to me in the comics, and he did a really good
Yeah.
job in terms of really giving good stories for like I said, the first few seasons of all those shows, really.
For
Yeah.
sure. Well,
Well,
the main
if
event,
we're-
huh?
yeah, if we're finished with that, it's time to talk a little bit of Black Adam, which it's crazy to me every time I think about the fact that this movie has been 15 years in the making since The Rock first mentioned. That's insane. It's so insane.
See, I thought he was
So-
mentioned. I thought I read he was like brought up in like 2014. So that'd be like 8 years, right? Or has it been 15?
Well, that's what everyone has been saying over in terms of the internet. Like I saw something where someone from Slash Film, Peter Soretta, they said that he had interviewed The Rock at one point, and he mentioned that his goal was to play Black Adam, but in terms of actual development, so it could be like less time in terms of actual development with him
Like
signing
the official
with
announcement.
Warner Brothers, and
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, obviously before the official announcement, there was already like, okay, we're
Right.
going to do this with you, and who knows when that
Yeah.
actually happened. Versus even before then, when he was like, hey, yeah, I want to do this.
Yeah,
but,
aspirations
Right,
of
right.
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was my understanding. I think the official announcement, I think, was in 2014 that he was like, okay, yes, he is Black Adam. That's what's
Still,
happening.
that was
But
a
still,
long
that was a long time ago.
Indeed,
I,
indeed. So,
I feel like in
the,
the age of COVID, like anything prior to like 2020, I'm like, that was so
Long
long ago.
ago.
Oh my gosh.
right? Feels like it was. It feels like that time you have to add at least 4 or 5 years
Oh yeah.
onto it
Right.
because it just feels. That's how long it feels ago when you talk about it.
Twenty
But
twenty lasted about 2.5 years. 2021
yeah,
was a solid 2 years.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right,
No,
exactly.
it's
Yeah,
been a wonky
we've.
time frame.
So I guess now that we've gotten to this point, and honestly, the movie I think I saw where they had spent at least 100 million on advertising for it, and now that it's here, um, there's feelings out there about it. and
There
and
are
and and by the way, we're,
feelings.
we're going to go into it now, and so be warned, we are going to be talking spoilers as we talk about the movie. So. Um, instead of, since I know we don't have the bowl here, I guess I'll just give my quick thoughts
I mean,
on the
I
movie.
have the bowl, but we don't have to do that.
All right, all right.
Yeah, no,
So
go
yeah,
for
I'll
it.
give my quick thoughts. Black Adam honestly was a movie that I never really felt like, okay, this is the movie I really need to see from DC. This is what I've been waiting for all my life. In fact, I think the one movie, if you're going to say that about, I always had my eye on Shazam more so than Black Adam, just because I thought that character could be a really well-rounded character that could work as a family type movie because of the character himself, that he's a kid and then he turns into a superhero. So to me, I always thought that would work really well as a film, and so that was the one I was looking forward to. But then when The Rock said, okay, I want to be Black Adam, and then we got fast forward to him actually being able to play that role, um I'll say that the build up to it in terms of advertising and commercials and trailers were lackluster to me, honestly. None of the trailers really got me excited for the movie itself, and so I just figured, whatever, I'm going to see it, so how bad could it be? And well, uh, it's bad, but I would be lying if I said didn't still enjoy it, even though it's bad. And um, there's just so many things in terms of story that don't make sense. And I think that to have a character like this and to just completely ignore the fact that there's a Shazam out there,
Mm.
to not even address it just seems sort of silly to me. And then you have this group of characters in the JSA that, for all intents and purposes, come out of nowhere because they've never been mentioned before, let alone just to mention some of how they formed or how long they've been around. There's so many things in this movie that just are disregarded, and it's like they said, it's almost like they were in the writers' room and they just said that. Someone said, "Well, are we going to explain why we're not talking about Shazam, or are we going to explain how the JSA has been around but no one's ever?" No, no. If we don't talk about it, that's better than us saying something lame and getting hit for that. It seems like that's what they decided. Is like, let's just not say anything as opposed to saying something that sounds kind of weak. And to me, it makes the movie very messy from a story standpoint. And there's a lot of messy parts in it, but the action and a lot of just the visual look of it, I enjoyed. Minus, I could have done with about 10 less slow motion scenes, but aside from that, the action still I thought was really good, and the visuals of it look good. So at the end of the day, did I enjoy it? Yes. Is it a good movie? No. That's my thoughts on Black Adam.
I think you should go.
Okay. Uh, I guess I'll start by saying, like, my expectations, kind of like how you started, Bobby. It was pretty low going into this. I agree with you. The marketing wasn't really doing much for me either. And it's like I don't know. It was low going in, but then there was that part of me that it got so low that I was going into it going, okay, it'll probably be a situation where I'll go into it and go, for what it is, this was actually entertaining. It's just not that, not the kind of movie I wish it would be, but it's fine for what it is. I'll be honest, coming out of it, my expectations were definitely not exceeded in any way. I'm not going to say like I hated it, like to a certain extent as a DC fan, as a comic book movie fan, there were aspects of it that I enjoyed. I mean, there were good things. Like, I mean, we're talking about spoilers. I can talk about whatever, but Dr. Fate, big fan. Like, I like that character in this movie, and I don't know if we'll see more of Dr. Fate or in what form or what, but I was like, really? Of all the people, huh? Like,
of all that group.
Of all that group.
That whole
like,
group.
we're going to lose this guy.
Okay.
But no, I liked him. Yeah, that might be mostly it. I'm trying to think of what else. There's not much. The movie is... Yeah, it's not great. It kind of feels like, I think my biggest issue with it, other than like story elements that don't work, instead of just, it doesn't feel like a movie that had a singular vision. Like a filmmaker was like, I want to make a Black Adam movie and this is my vision for it and I'm going to make this film. It felt like too many chefs in the kitchen kind of a situation. And I mean, I wasn't there. I don't know how this movie was produced and made, but it seems to me it comes across like a situation that you might expect from a film starring Dwayne Johnson. And nothing against him. He seems like a great guy. I like some of his movies. I like him as an actor and as a person. He seems awesome, but he also seems like someone, I mean, I guess he's a producer on this. His production company is involved in this. It doesn't seem like a situation where, okay, you've got a filmmaker and Dwayne Johnson is just an actor in this kind of playing his part. It's like, it almost feels like, oh, well, let's do this too. And maybe he had too much of a hand in things. I don't know. Or other people had too much of a hand in things. There's scenes in it that just feel so out of place. There's a lot of humor in this that totally does not work for me. I mean, we were a good ways into the movie when I was like, man, there's a lot of stuff in here that they are really trying to get like chuckles out of me. And I hadn't chuckled once. Now there was a point where I finally like chuckled at a few things and I was like, okay, that was pretty funny. And this was funny. But then on the flip side, there was one scene in particular that I swear to God, like once it started, I seriously was like, I'm done. I want to leave.
Which scene?
Oh man, I hated it so much. It was the scene that he had already seen on the TV, the Western. And then
oh my God,
the scene with like, suddenly let's play the Ennio Morricone, like, spaghetti Western music. And like that scene, when that music started, and I was just like, I really wanted to be like, this is terrible.
The
like,
definition of cringe was literally that.
There was so
scene.
many eye rolls already, and then that moment, I cringed so bad. I was like, if I were at home watching this, I might turn this off. Like that's how much this. Like I hated that. So
that
was the John Kemp did.
That was one of the lowest lows.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. But then it was funny because then after that point, there were actually some moments that I was like, I kind of chuckled at, and some of the humor started to work a little better than it had. But overall, it just feels like a mess. It feels like a movie that doesn't know where it wants to be. It falls in this funky area of DC, right? Like we just talked about it. We've got a new regime coming in with DC, and DC kind of needs to figure out where it's going. And this movie still feels like it's a remnant of the old regime. Like it's even trying aesthetically to kind of look like a Zack Snyder film in a lot of ways. Like very early on, I was like, oh wow, they're going full on like kind of 300 Zack Snyder, the slow motion stuff, which I'm not against.
The flashback stuff too.
I'm not hating on that look. Like look can be fine, but at the same time, I'm like, are we still kind of doing this in the DC? But then at the same time, the movie feels like it wants to be kind of this almost like a James Gunn kind of like that kind of humor to a degree. Stuff like that but I should say to a degree that totally doesn't work. Unlike if James Gunn had actually done it, it would have worked. Kind of like that Western moment in the film, which is just so cringeworthy. Yeah, no, I really, it's like I didn't hate it as I walked out. It's a movie. The more I think about it, the less and less I like it. It's also pretty poorly acted. There's a lot of pretty bad acting in this film.
Yeah, the kid in that is not. His line delivery is pretty bad.
To me yet.
I mean,
yeah. And then like there is story element stuff. Like even the way the movie's marketed, like. Yeah. It's marketed outright saying, like, there's the lines in one of the trailers of him going, yeah, my son sacrificed himself for me. But yet the movie is designed in a way where you're not supposed to know kind of who he actually is. You know,
yeah,
so I'm like, that threw me off too. I was, there's a lot of stuff. I know I'm going on a little bit, Michelle.
Oh no. The list is long. So if you can't tell already by my head nods in agreement with Bobby and David, I also did not like this film. There, I said it.
No.
I don't outright hate this film. As a matter of fact, in the spectrum of DC films, it's, in my opinion, still not the worst DC film. It just outranks Aquaman, in my opinion. And I think my bar was set so low for this film. That when I walked out of the film, my initial reaction was, I feel surprisingly surprised by it's not as bad as I thought it was.
It's one of the first things you told me, that you seemed actually, you were slightly more impressed with it than you thought you were going to be.
More impressed than I thought I was ever going to be with this film. Again, having a few days to sit and digest it, that's gone back down to where it's just above the bar I set. I'll put it that way. So... Yeah, no, I'm not impressed with the film. Like I said, it's a hot mess. This whole, like Dave was saying, from start to finish, I don't think they really had a clear, concise idea for it. Positives, again, like you said, now I can't think of his name.
Dr. Fate.
Dr. Fate. I think a huge positive. Hawkman, I'm going to say jury is still out on that one. Unfortunately, I think the Atom Smasher character, like, it's nice to see because it's like, I don't know that much about... I guess Atom Smasher, and I guess in my head I kind of equate him to the character that's in the League from what's the League from Tomorrow, whatever it is.
Justice League?
No.
Legion of Superheroes?
League of Tomorrow.
No, this on the CW with Roth. Played him.
Legends of Tomorrow.
Legends of Tomorrow. Yeah, Brendan Routh played Adam.
The Atom.
Right? Okay, he played the Atom, and this is Atom Smasher, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it's the same or not the same. I don't know.
It's not the same.
Okay. Yeah. Well, see, this is how much I know.
Well, no, I mean, I can understand because it kind of totally looks similar. And one gets small and one gets big. So, yeah.
It's like one is like the DC equivalent to Ant-Man, and this one is almost like the opposite of Ant-Man.
Correct. That's right. The one does get small. Okay, you are right. Yes. So Adam gets smaller than Atom Smasher gets big. Okay. Now I don't... See, there we go. This is why we talk things out.
Totally
but I will say, like, I like that superhero. I'm not so much hot on that actor as that superhero. And I'm not hating the actor who's in that character role. I think I can tell that I've seen him in other things. And I can tell the actor does have potential. I just don't know if he was quite the right fit for Atom Smasher. To be told later down the road, I guess. Cyclone I liked a lot, actually. If I were to say there was something kind of depressing, is that I feel like I was kind of like, Cyclone, I don't know that much about this character, you know, and I don't know much about this superhero. What's going on with her? And then, like, she's having this conversation with Atom Smasher, and she drops this bomb of like, oh yeah, when I was 15, I was kidnapped, and the scientist threw freaking stuff in me. Now I can do things. I was like, wait, what? That's fascinating. What's this backstory about? Can we get, like, I want to know more about her. I was like,
it almost
fascinating.
It almost seems like her and Atom Smasher, maybe not Atom Smasher, just because of, I don't know, budget, I would say maybe. But they totally could have their own HBO Max series, just fleshing out their two characters a little bit. It seems like it would work well.
they could have a cool like young adult like group of
Yeah.
them included, maybe like two or three others, not like Teen
Hmm.
Titans or anything, just a little. It would be
No.
interesting to learn more about some of their backgrounds. I'm just saying, when she dropped
Yeah.
that bomb, I was like, oh wait, what? That's interesting. I don't know about this. Like, I'm interested. I knew I wasn't going to get more, but I was like, yeah, just threw that bomb in there.
Right.
um you know Adam Smasher, I could kind of take him or
It's
leave him, I think. But yeah, it's like they killed the one that I was like, damn, that dude's a superhero. He's got cool powers. He does cool stuff. Like, I was like, he could tell he's very strong in his powers. There's a point where he's about to die and he's literally just everywhere and literally in Black Adam's head, down to the depths of the ocean. Like, I was like, that is a superhero that I think is fascinating. But I digress. These are the positives of this film. I like The Rock. I like Dwayne Johnson. I have absolutely nothing against Dwayne Johnson. Do I think he's a great actor? No. Do I still like him as a person? Totally. Everything I see seems like he's a great guy. His films they're Dwayne Johnson films. I don't hate them. I don't love them. I just kind of go, yep, that's what it is. I take it at very face value. But yeah, it just doesn't know what it wants to do. Like, it does this whole, like, every time they do a flashback, it's very, like, yeah, Zack Snyder 300-y. And then it's like it wants to do kind of like James Gunn Suicide Squad stuff, but not really. And it just is everywhere. And, like, I get that, like, the young boy that's in the film, the whole idea is that he is kind of another embodiment of Black Adam's son. Like, he's trying to like rise the people up. He's a leader. He's trying to do these things, but he just comes off as freaking obnoxious through the entire film. It doesn't come off as, oh, I believe in the good and I want to fight for what's right. It doesn't come off. It just comes off as obnoxiousness, like just rolling off of him. And I'm like, this kid, just make him go away. But yeah, like you said, like, you don't learn these guys show up into this country out in the middle of the desert and just take over and occupy them for what they said 20 some years, and nobody does a gosh darn thing about it. That's weird. Right. Plus, we've never heard of them, I don't think, in anything else, even like in like a TV on in the background talking about news in any of the other films. Like, it's literally never mentioned, and it's just kind of weird.
Why wouldn't, if the minute that, well, okay, one weird thing is just that the wizards entombed Black Adam, but like gave him an ability, or gave it to where he could still be summoned out of that for some reason, out of his prison.
Yeah, kind of weird.
Beyond that, once he comes out, why don't they show up and say, hey, you got to go back to where you were from? I don't know. Right. I can't recall from the Shazam movie if all the other wizards are gone and it's just Jaimin Hansu's wizard that's still around.
Seems to be the case.
He just showed up.
Yeah. It's my recollection.
Yeah, I couldn't remember.
Jaimin Hansu's wizard is still around. The other ones have died off. Which is why he wanted to.
But you think he would at least showed up and said Black Adam, or and brought Shazam with him or something. But yeah, no, they don't bother with that. And I think that's kind of the issues that I have with the movie, is just that they don't give you certain things and then they half explore certain things. Like Michelle said with the girl, she had an interesting thing, but it felt like they just sort of just tossed that in there. Like it was just sort of like a tack on to, just because they had to cut to a scene with the two of them on the ship and they were just like, oh, let's just drop that and then go completely away from it, and then they just fade into the background again. And it's so weird that, again, I can't help but go back to it, is that the fact that we have the JSA in this movie, and it's like, it's not even like, to me, a better, and I don't want to sort of criticize the story in terms of like, let me rewrite it, but to me, a better idea of how they fit into this could have been something like with Dr. Fate, who his helmet is, as they explained, from a different planet and super old. I forget, it was like millions of years old. Mm-hmm. That maybe his knowledge of certain things would be important, to where he feels like somehow, some way, he understands that that crown has been messed with and has been unearthed. And so they go to Kandak because they need to recover it. That seems like a better way of introducing them than to say Amanda Waller, who, for all intents and purposes, from everything we've seen her in, is sort of a bad person, can contact the JSA, who's a good team, to go into Kandak to solve this thing. It just seems so weird that they do it that way.
Totally.
But I don't know. It's just like
I was just getting to the boss lady in the room problem. And then there's Amanda Waller. Like, why does everything have to seem to cycle back to Amanda Waller and like her little teams? And this is what's going on with the teams. And like,
it seems to me it's almost like it seems like they're making an effort to like put her in that kind of Nick Fury kind of position in this DCEU set of films, right? Like you're right, Bobby. She's not a great person,
right.
but now since she's dabbling in the JSA, and then like there's the mid-credit scene, which we haven't even gotten to yet. Like it seems to me it's almost like they kind of want to have her in that kind of like she's the single point connection to all these heroes and all of the DC universe. I don't know if that'll continue under the new regime or what, but.
I find it obnoxious. It seems very old regime, like we're calling it,
right.
To have her basically be behind this whole operation. It's frustrating, you know. And I mean, the one character, the female who plays the professor, who starts this whole situation with the unearthing of the crown and whatnot. You know, she points out multiple times. She's like, no one has come to get us since these idiots came over and controlled my country and have taken over. Nobody's done anything, and it's like. She has a super solid point. Like, of all the superheroes to show up, and again, I acknowledge I'm kind of like the Wonder Woman, like, tote girl here. But, like, you know, you're talking about an oppressive governmental force or military force. And who's one of the major superheroes out of all of the DC fandoms that absolutely, one of, like, two, that hates government military, like, oppression of people and women and children and, like, life? It'd be like Wonder Woman and like Superman. Like they hate that kind of stuff. And you're telling me that the whole time this little people have like oppressed this country, nobody's shown up, and now Black Adam's here. So of course they're gonna raise up like a god. And then the freaking marketing. I could go on. I'm really upset about this movie. The marketing for this movie, like David said, like they give away one of the major like hooks to this, which is that Black Adam was initially the son. Like it's just so like. You're trying to convince me that this is what's happening, and you give it away in your marketing. Bad.
It's just, to me, I find it so weird that in the way that this story goes, I was on board for a decent amount of it, even though I had issues, and it all of a sudden says, you know what? JSA isn't enough. We need to introduce a devil demon into this movie. And it was like, I honestly felt like the movie could have ended if it was just Black Adam versus JSA, and they eventually get him to realize the error of his ways, and he says his name, and he goes into the underwater vault, and boom, end of movie. That could have been it. But then they said, nah, let's give him more. We need, you know what we need? We need zombies. We gotta have zombies, or whatever.
Like not even zombies. We need to have the undead skeletons.
Yeah, the undead.
You
gotta have that. You gotta have the big beam in the sky that goes, you know, that we haven't done since the '90s movies and stuff. It was just like so.
It's so overdone. It's so overdone.
Yeah.
And didn't they learn this lesson from the one CGI
Apparently
character
not.
they made in Justice League? Didn't they learn that lesson?
No.
Oh, no. They did not learn that lesson
Gotta have more
at
of
all. Did not learn that lesson at all. Okay, cool.
If anything, good. Amanda Waller should have sent another Suicide Squad team after Black Adam. Like, why would you waste perfectly good heroes against that? But
I was gonna say you've got decent heroes going up against Black Adam. She basically is sending a Suicide Squad, but it's a decent Suicide Squad. Like she really was kind of like, well, they might not live. Oh well.
Once you see his power set, and if you have Superman on your speed dial, you need to give him a call and say, "Oh, by the way, Superman, I know you know Shazam. Can you grab him as well and go take care of this problem?" Which leads us to the mid credit scene.
Right.
She basically tells Black Adam, "Don't step outside of your country, and if you do, we got someone here that will make sure that you stay there." And this plays into his old thing that no one on this planet can stop me or whatever, and that brings in Q Superman, who's not of this planet. And yeah, like you said, Michelle, highlight definitely, which is so nice. And imagine if The Rock didn't feel the need to booster that opening weekend by just telling everyone Henry Cavill and Superman was going to be in the movie. It would have been so nice to watch that and saw that. I just don't get that decision, but outside of that, just seeing him show up was very nice to see, and it just made me smile for sure that Henry Cavill is there. He's in the suit. We're going to get more. So I did at least appreciate that aspect.
It was spoiled, but yeah, it was cool to see. I mean, it was like, okay, here it comes. I know it's coming. I mean, even before he started talking about it on the press tour, I think there was kind of a leak from some like screenings, like fan screenings or whatever, test screenings, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that was the first I got wind of it, like on Twitter, just randomly scrolling through Twitter and seeing something about it and going, maybe it's not real, but it picked up enough steam that I'm like, even though I'm not seeking out this information, I can tell based on things you read on Twitter. And I was like, yeah, it seems like it's the case. It was basically spoiled. And then, then from my understanding, him on the kind of press tour, basically hinting directly at it. Like as a reveal in the mid credits or after credit scene, however you want to put it. It's like, come on, like, are they that worried about the numbers that they're like, come on, we'll just go ahead and tease this just to maybe get people in seats? Like, it's kind of unfortunate. It would have been, you're right, it would have been fun to have seen this movie, sat through it, and been like, okay, that wasn't great. I wish I could have left, but then been treated to that, not knowing it was going to happen. Because there was definitely people in our theater, that, at least based on their reaction, it seemed to me they didn't really know. Like,
right.
Yeah. And that was cool to even just kind of watch. It was kind of, I wish I could have been one of them, but I was like, like there was a dude next to me that I could tell, because he wouldn't really shut up throughout the film, that he was very knowledgeable about DC stuff and he knew his stuff. But even this guy who seemed pretty in tune with DC, like his reaction, I don't think he had any idea that was coming. So that was kind of cool to see.
I'm a little jealous.
Who the heck was he talking to?
Oh, like the other people next to him, just.
Oh gosh!
I will say our showing.
Why would you do that?
We had a rough showing.
It wasn't so bad. Like it was like
we always had been worse.
No, I'm just saying that going back to this kid, like his murmur was at a level that I was like, I wish you would shut up, but you're not like driving me nuts. Like I could deal with it. It was low enough that I could deal with it, but I wish, of course, I wish just people wouldn't talk at all. But anyway.
Right? Yeah.
And exactly. There was other aspects of our showing that Michelle's alluding to that weren't great either.
It was a rough showing.
It was rough.
I mean, it was. We sat through work showings.
Totally.
Before, but it's up there. No, it was a great mid credit scene, and it was really exciting. And honestly, it was interesting because I don't know the full story between Superman and Black Adam, but to my knowledge, it's not so congenial. But I will say, like, in that interaction that they had, they were almost like chummy. That's what I got out of it, honestly.
I don't know.
I thought it was almost like Superman showed up and he blew the thing up, like he was obeying Amanda Waller to go there. But then he was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. And he was kind of like, I'd rather have you as an ally than anything.
I will say that's not the vibe I got, especially based on the look that Black Adam gives when the camera goes back to him. I didn't get that vibe that you're getting. But
that was my guy.
Yeah, like I think Superman says we should talk. I think that was sort of his line for something similar to that. And to me, that means to me that um, Superman is relating to Black Adam that, hey, I know how it feels to be kind of like have this much power and to be looked at a certain type of way. So let me see if I can kind of talk to you on that level and not just resort to just like a fight, basically.
Let's try to beat the crap out of each
But
other.
yeah, Black Adam being Black Adam, I got the vibe that he'd rather punch first and talk second in that sense, as opposed to if I want to leave my country, you're not going to stop me. And so let's see you stop me right now if I want to fly out of this country and go somewhere else. That's kind of the vibe I got.
But I mean,
not seeing eye to eye, basically.
Right. I will say, like, yeah, like you said, Bobby, like Black Adam definitely has a gambit of power. Like his a very wide array. It's very strong. Like it was impressive to see a lot of the stuff that he was doing in the film for sure. Like I said, there are some positive takeaways, but yeah, like there's a lot of negatives. There's a lot of mess, mucky. It doesn't really know exactly the direction it wants to go in, and so it tries a couple different directions, and let's throw this in there and see how that sticks, and not the best, this film. Not the best. Not the worst.
Well, that being said,
Not the worst.
The Rock did say that that fight will happen at some point. I don't know if it would be in a Black Adam 2 or some other thing, but I will say, like you said, Michelle, basically it's not the best, but not the worst. And so because of that, I still find myself hopeful that they would take any of the bad juju or stuff from this movie and fix it and work it out and make a better sequel. And even they did say that they have a script for a sequel. So I'm hoping, because of, like David mentioned it earlier in talking about it, where it felt like there's a lot of cooks and Jean, what was his name? Jean Colette Serra, who directed it. Yeah. I feel like him and Rock, since they've worked on other things before, and I think prior to that, what was their last thing was the Jungle Cruise, I think. They probably have a good shorthand. So I don't know if, in terms of a director, if he'll be back. But I would like to think and hope that The Rock did say he listens to the fans. He wants to do what the fans want, that he would take that and try and make something a little bit more original of its own making, as opposed to feeling like a hodgepodge of other movies pieced together.
I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I don't want to see a Black Adam sequel.
Okay.
I think if you want to use Black Adam in other films, if they want to do some kind of weird Justice League, and then he shows up kind of as a mixture of good and bad to kind of throw things off in a storyline, that's fine. If they want to try again, maybe an attempt of a team up, that's fine. Or maybe he just shows up and either A, causes chaos, or B, solves the issue in a storyline, that's fine. I don't need a whole other film that's centered around him.
Yeah, I would agree. Based on the nature of this character, the kind of anti-hero character he is, I don't know that I want to Black Adam 2, but I'd like to see him have basically it almost like be his own movie, kind of. I don't know if you want to call it a Superman versus Black Adam, or I don't.
We know how all those films go.
I don't need another title like that, but
we know how all those go.
I mean, either showing up in as the main, antagonist in like a Shazam film, or
Right.
But a Black Adam sequel, I guess I'm not against it, especially if under the new regime, like it's a very different movie than we just got.
True.
And I think it would be.
I think it would be too. And I mean, I guess, if they do decide to go that route, I trust that they have a good reason to go that route. But
In fact, I would honestly say that I would hedge my bets towards not only it being a different, but more leaning towards the Peacemaker side than this Shazam sort of whatever type this is. Because if James Gunn is involved, I think he would.
I don't know if we're losing Bobby.
I think we might be losing.
I think we might be
Bobby.
losing Bobby. If you can hear us, I don't know, but
Screen.
oh, take it back. We lost you for a while.
Yeah, I
Bobby.
can hear you.
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
We can hear
we can
you.
hear you now. That sound great.
You're good.
Okay. I just was saying that I think James Gunn would want to lean into the anti-hero part and have it a little bit more violent in the nature of like Peacemaker.
Okay.
A little bit more bloody and arms and limbs being ripped off and that kind of thing. I could totally
Right.
see him pushing it a little bit harder into that realm.
Since Amanda Waller is already thrown into this whole chaos of a storyline, what if, he had to kind of do some kind of a weird, like, group up with Peacemaker? God, could you see the two of them just freaking foreheads at each other?
Hello, John Cena and
I know.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
I
that
know.
whole wrestling connection.
It's
Yeah, I
already
think
a
people
match
would love
made
that.
in heaven. Let's just start with that. But yeah, those two characters would hate each other. Oh my god, it would be glorious to watch on film.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Black. Yeah. Oh, there's a whole nother. I have a whole nother tangent. I'm not gonna go.
Oh, yeah, we have to
I'm-
go to
All right, I
sleep.
think
I
that's the
know.
thing. We could honestly keep
We could-
going
I
on
have
this,
a whole
but I know
nother
we
tangent.
are pretty much out of time for this
Yeah.
week.
I
I don't
know,
know if
I'm
you
just-
want to stretch it at all, David, because there's some. Well, okay, then we'll wrap it up. I know that you might wanted to talk a little bit about some other stuff we've been watching, but
I mean, yeah, I guess it's since we're here and really quick. I mean, I think it's worth mentioning since House of the Dragon just ended.
Yeah.
And it's been a big part of my life for the last 10 weeks. I think it's at least worth covering very quickly because we are out of time,
Right.
and I'll go ahead and say first, House of the Dragon's over. Now we enter the time period of just waiting whenever the hell we're gonna get a season 2 to this show that I loved. I loved the show. I thought it was great. I'm not saying it was perfect. There are things about it that I think, in terms of the way they chose to tell the story, that I'll just say is interesting. And but overall, I've thoroughly enjoyed the show. It was good to be back in Westeros, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of Westeros again, which I think is kind of hinted at that we might see as the show goes on. I'm not really talking spoilers for the show, by the way, but yeah, I don't know. I'm very happy with the show overall. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So that's all I wanted to say. Since we're not going to go way in depth on this. So.
Yeah, I'll just
Right.
say I agree. I've enjoyed this show from the moment it started to its last scene. I'm very into it. Does, like you said, does it have some issues? Yeah, it's got some problems. I mean, but God, like, even watching season 1 of Game of Thrones, there's a lot of issues in that season. And it got better. It worked out its kinks, and it's found its thing, and it figured out a few other things. And even though this is still kind of helmed by the same people, it's still kind of it's a similar story, but it's a different story. And this does have a different feel to it than even Game of Thrones does, because the characters are a different. We'll say they're cut from a different cloth, but it's still so enjoyable to be back in Westeros, to be back into this, just this high fantasy kind of world. And no, I'm very happy with it, and I'm very much into it. And I really am not looking forward to waiting until hopefully spring of 2024 for season 2. I'm hoping that's when it comes out. So yeah, it's gonna be a long wait.
I mean, yeah, officially we don't know anything.
Officially, we know nothing.
But
But like, I think the estimated time frame in order to shoot something of this caliber and get it out there, like, the hope is spring of 2024, right?
I mean,
Summer 2024.
I mean, yeah, that sounds right if they started filming here. at
basically
least
after the
by-
new year.
Fingers crossed, I guess. Like,
Right.
maybe I'm just being too.
Because yeah, in a
positive
perfect
on
world,
it.
we all wish it was coming back next fall.
Oh
but
my
that's
God.
Not
Sure.
probably gonna happen.
It makes me shake my fist at the sky and go, why didn't they just go ahead and shoot season 2? Like, I don't. Like, you guys, you have a Game of Thrones show. Like, what?
To be fair, I can understand why they didn't, just because they didn't know how it would do based on how
Right.
the last season of Game of Thrones was. I would honestly level that complaint more towards Rings of Power, because they already knew that they were greenlit for a second season. So you would think that they would have sort of done that all back to back, but they just started shooting for their second season. So
Yeah.
it'll be a little while. But I agree with you guys. I think from where I was at the end of season 8 of Game of Thrones, which and we've talked about it on this show many times, I enjoy that season, even though it has its issues. I think that for me at that point, when they announced that they were going to do more Game of Thrones, I was like, okay, I guess. I'm not saying no that I won't watch it, but at the same time, I'm just like, it's
I think-
almost one of those things where it puts you through so much. I didn't know if I was ready to gear up for all that again, no matter
It's
when
a
it was
lot.
coming out. So, and it was almost seemed like it was announced fairly quickly after season 8 ended.
Yeah, it was.
And so I was just like, ugh. And then, seeing very little of it leading up to it, there was just no level of, in terms of hype or anticipation that I had for it, other than like, I'm going to watch it. So that being the baseline, what they gave us was so good in terms of a first season based on my anticipation level. I think that they did such a fantastic job right out the gate. And I, not just for myself, am appreciative and happy of how good the first season was, but for people who love Game of Thrones and didn't have a good experience with the last couple of seasons with the show. So now they've got renewed interest and love for something that they had before, and can get back into it and enjoy it, because it seems pretty, and I haven't seen anything specifically, but it seems pretty unanimously across the board, people have really enjoyed this first season of House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think with anything, it's like a spinoff. I'm automatically skeptical of spinoffs of things. You know?
No. Yeah.
Like, and I mean, we know too that the production of this kind of, not this show in particular, but just the idea of doing a Game of Thrones spinoff kind of had bumps in the road. They were going to do a different show that they shot a pilot
Right.
for, a very expensive pilot, and then they didn't go with it.
Or they trashed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they went with this instead. And I mean, I don't know anything about the other show, but I'm glad they went with this. It works. It's based on an
does.
actual George R.R. Martin book, unlike the other show, which was
Right.
not. No, I'm very happy with this.
Yeah.
And then
No.
I feel like it's totally off topic, but I have to mention this real quick because it's a nitpicky thing. It bugged me. We finally watched the finale to Rings of Power yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Which I will say too, I don't want to go into too much into Rings of Power. I liked this season. I was very skeptical of that show. Like, I liked this season,
Yeah.
and I don't know why I feel like I need to mention this.
It's
like,
a beautiful show.
it is a beautiful
is.
show. I very much enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed it, and at the same time, part of me is like, I don't know what to make of it, but I also very much enjoyed it. That doesn't probably sound like it makes sense, but that's kind of where I am.
Yeah.
But then, like, in the vein of like the Lord of the Rings films, the season ends with a credits, like, during the credits, a song which in this case I hated. Like this song plays during the credits, and I'm just like,
Make it stop.
make it stop. Like,
Make it stop.
like every Lord of the Rings film had a really great song at the end. The original song, I think Enya was the first one. I forget who did the one for Two Towers that I liked a lot. Actually, might be my favorite. And then I forget what.
They were mixed. I can't
Rhythm-
remember.
yeah.
Was it because it had
I can't remember
lyrics?
her name.
They all, I mean, some the other ones had lyrics.
They did.
Like
Oh.
the lyrics for this one though were like basically the dialogue of the prologue, you know, about the different rings, right? And there was just
Right,
something about it that I'm just like, this feels so forced. Like this shouldn't be a song.
Very
Like,
forced.
like, it's like because of the nature of the finale of this season, we're gonna do a song version of the explanation of the different rings, and then the inscription on the one ring, and I'm just like, this should not be in song form. Like, I was not a fan.
It was.
So,
It was a
it's
hard bump. It was a hard bump.
I was just fresh in my mind because we finally just got around to watching that last night. We've been very busy and it just didn't work out. And then of course the finale was spoiled for us, which is a whole other thing that really pissed us off. But yeah, I don't know. I felt like I need to mention that because it just bugged me.
The Annie Lennox.
That's
song
interesting.
Annie Lennox song was the
is
one
the
from
good
Return of the
one.
King.
And it's good.
It's good. But I think the Two Towers one actually might be my favorite. I don't even
Two
remember who
Towers
that
is really
artist
good.
is. I've always loved that
she's
one.
a very unique artist. She's not a mainstream artist. Yeah. On that, I feel like we've talked about.
We've talked about all things. And we haven't gotten a chance to watch Andor yet today, or Tales of the Jedi. I want to watch both of those.
We have not watched Andor yet today.
And I will say, we actually, in talking about Black Adam, there's something in Tales of the Jedi that covers that exact same thing. So it's kind of interesting seeing that sort of duality of a theme covered in Star Wars and in Black Adam.
Okay. I'm looking forward to Tales of the Jedi, by the way. I haven't watched everything animated when it comes to the Star Wars universe, even though I wish I had. I just haven't. So I'm looking forward to watching it.
And I will say that this is not going to be for everyone, this Tales of the Jedi, because it's hard to say because I can't quite come at it from an outside perspective, but I will say that I think if you have watched some of the animated stuff, it enriches it. I don't know how it will affect if you haven't seen some of that stuff. So I'll be curious to hear your thoughts once you do get a chance.
Since
to watch.
I have a lot of gaping holes when it comes to the animated stuff that I haven't filled in with. Yeah, I need to do that. Yeah, we are over time, so we're going to wrap things up. As always, we would love to hear back from everyone listening and watching. If you're watching us on YouTube, please leave questions and comments down below. We would love to hear from you. Make sure to like and subscribe. Hit that bell icon to be notified whenever we post any videos or go live in the future. By the way, I recently did a trailer reaction on our channel for the first time.
Yeah, you did.
Which I might do more of.
Go watch it. I thought it was pretty good. I liked it quite a bit.
I not to go off on a tangent about that, but if I continue doing those, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. I've always been a person that I love really, really good trailers. There's some really good trailers out there that I feel like it's an art form in and of itself.
It is.
And I will start to come at it from that kind of perspective with some of these, even though I don't feel like there's a lot of those trailers anymore, but occasionally we get them. Like a trailer that comes to mind recently, the first trailer for Wakanda Forever, actually.
Yeah,
that was a good trailer.
Is
one of
probably the most solid trailer I may have ever seen from a Marvel film. It's damn good. Anyway, yeah, go check that out. You can find us on social media, Flickr_effect over on Twitter and Instagram. Reach out to us wherever you can. We would love to hear from you. And with that, I'm David Lott.
I'm Bobby Jackson.
And I'm Michelle Hillard.